Hello everyone and welcome to another very nice game. It's from round 9 of the Croatian Grand Chess Tour being played in Zagreb, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov versus Viswanathan Anand. We do have one photo of this matchup, here it is, courtesy of Leonard Otis, official photographer of the Grand Chess Tour. And as a bonus question for you, who is the gentleman making the first move for Shakh? That being said, let's check out this very nice game. It's already round 9, there are 11 rounds, so the tournament is nearing its end, and it's still very it can be anyone's tournament. So let's just check it out. Mamedyarov opens with d4 with knight to f6, c4, sorry about that, with e6 from Anand, knight to f3, and of course you all know what we're gonna see. We have d5, the queen's gambit declined, knight to c3, and now d captures on c4. And e4, a line Mamedyarov plays very often, with bishop to b4, bishop captures on c4, and now we have knight captures on e4. And here we have just castles by Mamedyarov. And here, although it seems like you can win material here, it's not all that simple. For example, if you try something like knight captures, pawn captures, and bishop captures, then white might even try something like bishop to a3. Says, okay, you can have my rook. I will gladly give you my rook for a very strong dark square bishop. I'm going to prevent you from castling, and it's going to be very awkward playing this position with black. On the other hand, you could try bishop captures on c3. It seems to work out very nicely. After pawn captures, knight captures, now the queen is under attack. Let's say queen b3, knight d5, but it doesn't help, because if you want to castle to safety with black, I mean, if you don't want to allow bishop to a3, you're going to have to castle very quickly, because after rook to e1, you're again threatening to win material here with bishop captures, since you will not be able to recapture with the pawn. And here, after you castle, you're just going to get bishop to a3, just a nice developing move, rook to e8, and now after bishop captures on d5, you will play e captures on d5, and queen captures on d5 wins back the pawn. So in fact, you will not be winning any pawns. Of course, you cannot capture, because rook captures on e8 will be mate, and even if you trade once, it's even worse, because now black is just lost. You don't really have a good move. Whatever you play, bishop d7, rook e7, let's say, is coming, bishop nicely guards the rook there, and you cannot defend against both threats of rook captures here and queen captures on f7, followed by queen captures on g7 mate. So although it seems like you can win material, you really can't. So knight back to f6 by Anand, and now queen to a4 check. Check, and you're threatening to win the bishop, so knight c6, this is the only move. And here, Mamedyarov already had this position, for example, against Caruana in Bundesliga this year, where he played knight to e5, but here he goes for bishop to g5, a move Mamedyarov played against young Krzysztof Duda in the Tata Steel chess tournament at the beginning of the year. With bishop captures on c3, the same as in game Mamedyarov versus Duda, b captures on c3 with castles by black, and now comes rook f to e1. Rook f to e1 is a new move. In the game against Duda, Mamedyarov tried again knight to e5, but here rook f to e1 is a new move. So let's see how Anand deals with a completely new game. So first, knight to e7. He wants to remaneuver this knight over to f5. From there, the knight will guard the h4 square, and then Anand wants to play h6, where the bishop will not be able to retreat to h4, and the bishop will be forced to either retreat back or to capture on f6. And you don't want to capture on f6 if you don't really have to, since you don't want to give up your bishop pair for nothing. So here, although you could do it, you don't really want to do it. Bishop to d3 by Mamedyarov, and now the bishops are very nicely attacking the black king. Now, for example, if this queen was over here, it would already be a very nice attacking position, but it's not all that easy to bring the queen over there. We have knight to f5 by Anand, and now comes rook 8 to d1. A very important move, as like we said, Anand is planning h6. So he plays it, and now bishop back to c1. And now if your rook was still on a1, your rooks would not be connected. So this way the rook is nicely placed on a d file, and now everything is all right for white. With b6 by Anand, preparing bishop to b7 to fianchetto the light square bishop, and now c4, a very nice move by Mamedyarov. Now bishop to b7 can in some cases be met with d5, because if the bishop is no longer on this diagonal, the knight is unprotected, so you will not be able to capture with the pawn. The pawn is needed for the protection of the knight. With rook to e8 first by Anand, and now bishop to b2. a nice developing move by Mamedyarov, and now bishop to b7. And here you have to really decide whether or not to push d5. Once you push it, you can't unpush it. I mean, it looks really great. Black cannot capture as the knight would hang. You open up this beautiful diagonal for your dark square bishop. Problem is, after knight to d6, yes, you can capture on e6, but black can play bishop captures on f3. And after e captures on f7 check, knight captures, you will get rook captures here, queen captures on e8, and then g captures on f3. And here you would have this position where you have two bishops against two knights, but the rooks are still on the board, and black's pawn structure is just much better. Black has 2 pawn islands, whereas white has 4 pawn islands and also the doubled f pawn. So black is definitely to be preferred here. So you don't really gain anything by pushing d5 right away. So first, Mamedyarov improves knight to e5. It's an excellent outpost for the knight. And now knight to e7 by Anand. With bishop back to b1, a standard attacking idea. You want to tuck your bishops back and now leave them here. They are just beautiful attacking pieces. And now c5 by Anand, just attacking the strong center. So now, while you can capture on c5 here, and it comes with an attack on the queen, after queen to c7, you can capture even another pawn, and now you've equalized in pawns, as black was already up a pawn, but you've given black really a lot of activity. So first, Mamedyarov goes queen to c2, brings the queen over to this beautiful diagonal, aligns it with the h7 square, and now prepares to go for a very nice attack. We have queen to c7 by Anand, now comes d captures on c5, and now Anand doesn't bother with recapturing, but first rook 8 to d8. He just wants to mobilize his pieces as quickly as possible. We have captures on b6, and now finally Mamedyarov starts the attack, knight to g4. And here you have to ask yourselves, how do you prevent this attack? Of course, if you capture the knight, it's queen h7 check, king f8, and queen or bishop captures on g7 will be made. So how do you prevent the attack? If you try, well, feel free to pause the video and try to figure out the best defensive move for Anand in this position. I'll give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent defensive player. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the move is, well, first let's try knight g6. What happens if knight g6? Then you just, for example, capture here, and, well, you lose the exchange here. As it's check, you're going to lose the rook on e8. So what Anand played is knight to e4, and it's really a nice move because you have to see that Mamedyarov has a lot of back rank weaknesses. For example, now it seems like you can capture the knight here, but not really, because after rook captures, bishop captures on e4 will be deadly. The queen is under attack. For example, if you capture, rook captures here will be mate. On the other hand, after this knight to e4 move, if you try to trade once first, let's say rook captures on d8, rook captures on d8 and only now rook captures on e4, it's pretty much the same. Bishop captures on e4, and okay, now you can move the queen, let's say queen c1, but now you get queen to f4, and now again, you try to exploit white's back rank weaknesses. If the queen is captured, then rook d1 will be mate. So after you make some room for your king, let's say f3, black will just win material. Queen captures, and bishop captures here, and you're also comes with a lot of threats. Rook d1 is a threat, so a completely winning position. So after this knight to e4 move, of course, Mamedyarov cannot capture it. He plays f3, now forces the knight to move, but now Anand has queen c5 check with king to h1, and now you cannot go knight f2 check because this knight is guarding the f2 square. So first Anand pushes h5. He wants to kick the knight away and then play knight f2 check and win material. It's very nicely done. But Mamedyarov goes knight h6 check, as he will win this knight, so at least he wants to mess up Anand's pawn structure. Anand has to capture with g captures on h6, f captures on e4, but now Anand pushes e5, and here with this e5 move, Anand completely closes off this diagonal, so he doesn't have to worry about it anymore. Or does he? Because here Mamedyarov plays rook to d5, and rook to d5 is just an ugly move. it says I'm prepared to give up some material to release my bishop pair, and you don't really have an option of declining this. If you move the queen, then just rook captures on e5, and next, after you capture pawn, you're just going to move the rook back to wherever, probably capture the h5 pawn. You're going to then be able to push this pawn and release the bishop that way. So Anand says, okay, I do have to accept your offer, but I'm not going to accept it with the knight. If I play knight captures, after this, there's really no preventing queen to h7. So instead, Anand plays bishop captures on d5. We have e captures on d5. Now this diagonal is once again open, but now knight to g6, just closing it once again. We have rook to f1 by Mamedyarov, and now what do you play here? As soon as I saw this position, I thought, well, the white's biggest compensation for the exchange is the beautiful d5 pawn. Also, the bishop pair is very nice, but this is the real strength in the position. So I thought, why not b5, just try and undermine it? Seems very nice. It takes a lot of calculating to do, because here rook captures on f7 is the idea. Of course, if you capture, you lose the game because queen captures on g6. But after rook to d6, black should be okay. But Anand finds a different idea. First, Anand plays rook to e7, which is not all that great. In the case that I've shown, b5 was better, because here, if white wants, white can pretty much force a draw after rook captures on f7. Now, rook captures, queen captures on g6 with check, king to f8, and now queen captures on h6 with check. King e7, you can go queen e6 check, king goes back here, queen check, king goes here, queen checks here, and you have a forced draw by repetition. So b5 was a bit better than this rook to e7 move, but Mamedyarov is not interested in a draw. He goes queen to c1, threatens to win the h6 pawn, and now rook to a7 by Anand. I don't really have a good explanation on rook to a7 or why it was played. It seems like a very strange move to me. I'm sure it has its reasons, although it's very hard to pinpoint them. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the idea is bring the other rook over to somehow defend the f7 pawn, and then maybe play rook a4 and go after the c4 pawn, which is really the base of the strong pawn chain in white center. But other than that, a really strange move, although maybe I'm just blind. So if any of you have an idea, do share in the comments. But okay, here we don't have queen captures on h6 right away, because then black can actually capture on c4, and after rook captures on f7, rook captures on f7, queen captures on g6, you get rook g7, and then again queen e6 check, you're gonna go king to h8, and so on and so on. So first, Mamedyarov plays h3. Like we've shown here, after this queen to e6 check, you can't really play something like bishop captures here, as queen to f1 would be checkmate. So here, before going for something like queen captures on h6, Mamedyarov plays h3. He makes some room for the king, so in the line that we've just shown, queen to f1 will not be mate. And now rook to d6. Anand brings another defender to the king side with queen captures on h6, and now rook back to e7. So it's very interesting what this rook was actually doing on a7. You can't capture on c4 now, because rook to c1 will just be winning for white. Rook c8 will be deadly. So rook goes back to e7, which does seem like the square where the rook belongs. Now queen back to c1, and with this move, Mamedyarov threatens bishop to a3 to really connect here nicely, and finally Anand pushes b5. But now, if you don't want to lose this very strong pawn chain, you have to play bishop to a3. This is what Mamedyarov does. We have b4 now, bishop to b2, and now rook to a6. So what do you play here? Here Mamedyarov goes for rook to f5. He goes after the h5 pawn, and now comes f6 by Anand, just strengthening the e5 pawn here. Now, is this one of the cases where it's actually okay to play f6? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Mamedyarov goes queen to h6 now, as by playing f6, the knight here is no longer defended. And what do you play here? How do you defend the knight? Feel free to pause the video and try to find the best defensive move for Anand. I'll give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who found knight to f4, congratulations. It's the move Anand played, but it's not the best move. It's actually, well, it's not even a good move. Here, rook to g7 is best, just defending the knight with the rook, and everything is fine. But here, Anand played knight to f4, and it just doesn't work, because here, well, once again, feel free to pause the video and try to find why knight to f4 doesn't work. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent, sacrificer of bishops. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, bishop captures on e5 is what Mamedyarov played. Here, by playing knight to f4, Anand basically saw that if rook captures, and queen captures, that everything is alright. He can play queen captures on c4, and there's no problem. The threat is queen to f1, followed by queen to g2 checkmate. For example, if you capture, then it's game over for Mamedyarov. But what he missed was actually after knight to f4, this bishop captures on e5 move. And now, if you capture the bishop with the pawn, you don't capture the rook on a6, but you deliver mate. Rook to f8 is checkmate. So, after this bishop captures on e5 move, Anand has to play queen to f2. It's the only way, threaten checkmate, and after queen captures on f4, removing the knight, now you play queen to e1 check, king to h2, and now rook captures on e5. Rook captures on f6, rook captures, queen captures, and now you're going to go h4. And with the threat of queen to g3, you have an ensured draw. White will have to settle for a perpetual, as there is no good way to bring the bishop into the attack. Queen g6 check, king f8, queen f6 check, king g8, and so on. But here, Anand actually played rook captures on e5, but this doesn't work. Mamedyarov just played rook captures on e5, we have pawn captures on e5, and now the a6 rook is unguarded, queen captures on a6. We have queen to f2, and it seems like it's the same. Anand will either checkmate Mamedyarov, or Mamedyarov will somehow have to fight really hard for a draw. But it's really not the case, because Mamedyarov has queen to c8 check, king to f7, and now queen to f5 check. We have king back to g8, and now queen to g5 check. And with this check, the queen now guards the g2 square. Black again has to waste a move with king to f8, and now the final touch in the defense, king to h2, not allowing any checks to pick up the bishop here on b1. So as you don't have any checks here, Anand plays h4. It seems like, again, you have enough resources for a draw here, but you really don't. Here, Mamedyarov played bishop to f5, and believe it or not, it was in this position that Viswanathan Anand resigned the game, as now he's just down too much material and he doesn't have any good ways of continuing this fight. He doesn't have any tricks. For example, you can push e4, the bishop will just win that pawn. If you try something like, it's hard to say, what can you even try? Knight captures on g2 with the idea that if queen captures, you can capture the bishop here. Just queen f6 check, and now the king has to go to a light square, and you blunder your queen. Let's say king g8, bishop e6 check, you have to move, and now just queen captures on f2. So very nicely done. And on the other hand, if you just try a slow move like queen e3 and then try to get your knight into the game somehow or something like that, d6, there's really no stopping d7 and d8. Well, if you try and go for the endgame, like we said, black is just down too much material. For example, queen captures, captures, captures. You're gonna go king to e7 and then just king to f3, and you have too much pawns. It's 5-2. There's it's not even close that black can even try to play this. So Anand knows this. After bishop to f5, he resigned, and well, a much needed point for Mamedyarov, who's been having a terrible tournament. And I thought that the quote above the board is fitting for this game. That's what chess is all about. One day you give your opponent a lesson, the next day he gives you one, as Mamedyarov really received a lot of lessons this tournament. So here he gave one to Viswanathan Anand. It's just the way chess is. And also we said that we were going to check out the standings, so here they are. This is the only decisive game from round 9. All the other games ended in a draw, but they were really fighting games, really insane games, especially, for example, Nepo versus Wesley So. Nepo was dead lost, but somehow, again, he managed to draw the game. It was just insane. Magnus still first, clear first with 6.5, but Wesley really close with 6, so only half a point behind Magnus, and they face each other today in round 10, so it's going to be really awesome. Wesley has the white pieces against Magnus. Then with 5 points, Fabiano Caruana, Jan Nepomniachtchi, and Levon Aronyan. With 4.5, Ding Liren. Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, Anish Giri, and Sergei Karyakin with 4. Shakhriyar Mamedyarov and Viswanathan Anand with 3.5, and Hikaru Nakamura in last place with 3 points. But still, 2 more rounds to go. He can definitely improve on that. So yeah, once again, I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Hanson Rodriguez, Teal Shias, Michael Gebhardt, Rich Piper, and Tobias Shirma for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. I'm probably going to visit the Grand Chess Tour once again today. I'm going to try and get my 2 signatures that are missing from my board to, make it a nice, complete, signed chessboard. But we'll see how it goes. You can never know how these things will go. So once again, I do hope you enjoyed it. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.